The wind prowled across the courtyards of Winterfell like a restless wolf, nosing at shuttered windows, rattling the frosted iron hinges of gates, carrying the smell of snow and pine and hidden things. Inside the gallery above the great hall, torches guttered beneath the draught, their orange tongues licking upward, only to fade into gray plumes that mingled with the banners. The ancient gray direwolf of House Stark rippled, alive for a heartbeat, then stilled again as gust and flame withdrew. Lyanna Stark stood alone at the carved balustrade, her fingers whitening on the dark oak rail, the chill creeping up through stone into the thin leather of her riding gloves. She had risen well before dawn, before the stable grooms, before Master Waelys ravens took their first meal, to seek solitude in the corridors few disturbed so early. The north still slept, as did most of her kin, but her pulse drummed with impossible brightness, with something too large to fit beneath her ribs. She listened to the hush, distant croak of a rook settling by the rookery roof, muted clop of a single horse being led to water, the small creak of snow shedding from slate eaves. Such quiet might have seemed a blessing on any other morning. Today, the silence felt portentous, as though it gathered around her like the hush before the clash of sword on shield, before the echoing roar of 1,000 throats. Snow whirled beyond the tall windows, fine as sifted flour, catching in whirls of blue light just past the panes. Dawn had not yet reached the sky, but the pale silver on the eastern horizon promised it soon. Lyanna breathed deep, tasting Winterfell itself, smoke from banked fires, old timber, wolves in the godswood, and let the hush coil tighter. The hour approached. Footsteps broke the stillness, not hurried but purposeful. She knew their rhythm before she turned. Ned. Her elder brother moved with the quiet gravity of a sworn knight, even in his night clothes. Plain woolen tunic, heavy leggings, dark cloak thrown over broad shoulders. His hair was tousled, his cheeks rawed by the walk from his chambers, but his eyes were already awake, watchful, gray as the winter sky behind him. "Leah?" he greeted softly. The childhood name carried a warmth she almost feared would melt her resolve. "Ned," she returned, pretending her voice did not tremble. She straightened, let her gloved fingers slip from the rail. In the torch glow, her breath plumed between them. "You should be asleep. The feast was long. So was your vigil." He inclined his head toward the corridor she had come. "The gods say you walk the wall walks half the night." "Thinking walks," she said. "And listening." "To what?" "Everything the stones whisper. Everything Father's Hall can't." She drew the cloak tighter about herself. Beneath the sable, her wool dress carried the faint scent of pine resin and horse. "Do you hear them, Ned? The cracks in the mortar, the warp in the beams, the flinch of banners? They say change is coming." Ned's brow knit, but he only nodded. "There is word from White Harbor. Lord Wyman's envoys ride for the harvest assemblies. Father means to call banners early. He says the crown grows restive." Restive. The southern words sank into her bones like cold iron. Restive, like the stallion Robert had sent as betrothal gift. Massive, impatient, snorting, stamping at the stable door as though every nail inside offended. Robert's words, "My wild wolf maid, my northern queen," echoed still, fused with mead laughter. She had smiled at them once. No longer. Ned waited, perhaps expecting comment. When she offered none, he went on. "Father will want you at council after the midday meal. Brandon too, if he can be pried from sword practice." Maisie. Her brother's name, something fluttered beneath her sternum. Love laced with fear. Brandon carried tempest in his blood, and tempests could break. She turned away, studying the snow beyond the window. "Father will have his dutiful daughter at table," she answered at last. "But I have another matter first." Another ride, Ned guessed. The kennel lad said you saddled the gray mare before dawn 2 days running. A ride, she confirmed. North of the village, past Turnip Hill. I'll not miss counsel. Then, softer, trust me. That drew a small smile from Ned. I always have. He reached to touch her shoulder, fatherly in the gesture despite scant years between them. But be cautious, Lya. The roads. Father fears rebels gather under broken banners. Wildlings slip through the wall. And south. The south is a long road off. She met his gaze. Our danger lies nearer. He studied her, perhaps reading in her face what her tongue would not utter. Dawn tapped its first pale brushstroke upon stone. Torchlight waned in deference. At last Ned sighed. If Brandon discovers you gone, I'll be back before he wakes. She forced a grin, mischievous, the face her brothers expected of her. LYANNA, the free rider. LYANNA who raced wind and stream. But the smile slipped too quickly. She drew breath. Ned, there is something I must ask. Anything. If you should hear rumor this day that shocks the keep, promise me you will listen first, judge after. He straightened, eyes narrowing. What rumor? Promise. A beat. Then, I promise. A pause heavier than snowfall. Will Father hear the same? Everyone will. She closed fingers around his wrist, needing the grounding weight. And I will need you beside me, though you may curse me for it. He clasped her hand tight, cold leather to warm flesh. I stand with my sister. No storm can break that. The words warmed a coral she feared cooling forever. She offered a thankful nod, released him, and stepped back into the hush. Ned watched her a moment longer, then departed down the stair, boots ringing faintly upon stone. She listened until silence swallowed his echo. Alone once more, LYANNA pressed palm to her breast, steadying the thunder of her heart. Promise made, now only deed remained. She left the gallery, cloak trailing in her wake like a stroke of midnight across snow. The corridors branched, lit by dawn's hesitant promise, but she knew each twist. Past the solar, past the doors to lordly chambers, down the narrow stair that led to the empty servants' passage. Cobwebbed archways yawned, frost-limbed mortar here where no fire burned. She preferred such places, forgotten arteries of Winterfell's heart, where ancient secrets clung as lichen on rock. In a low chamber behind shuttered slits that once served as murder holes, she paused. Her mare waited beyond, saddled, reins looped over a stall beam. The animal stamped and tossed her speckled mane, sensing the day's cold scour, sensing her rider's charge, perhaps. LYANNA stroked the horse's cheek, murmuring in the old tongue her grandmother had whispered when the hearth was low, and the world seemed bigger than any child's courage. She felt the mare's warm breath against her palm, and found steadying there. From a cedar chest she withdrew what she had hidden these past weeks. A circlet of maiden silver wrought in the shape of overlapping weirwood leaves, their veins set with small chips of garnet, dark as clotted heart's blood. No jewels of southern cut, no gold filigree, only the starkness of north and Godswood. She lifted it now into the faint light. It seemed to drink dawn and torch glow alike, turning them to pale river water within its metal. Her fingers, though steady moments ago, trembled. She had forged her resolve in long nights, in stolen councils with the women of Winterfell and the wise wives of villages, scattered like sparks across a black hearth. She had weighed each consequence against the great ledger of blood the South exacted from the North. Still, the weight of the circlet appeared greater than hammered silver. It was the weight of old vows shackling new dreams, of fathers' bones and winter kings, whose names lay buried in crypts. LYANNA pressed the cold metal to her forehead and closed her eyes. In that breath, she could almost hear the rustle of Godswood leaves, could almost taste the sap that bled from carved faces. Sap thick, salt-bitten, ancient as snowfall. She saw her ancestors, mountain kings crowned in bronze, spearwives who stalked giants on the frozen plains, queens who rode direwolves in times when the long night still lingered in men's nightmares. Their blood pulsed in hers, their voices, long silenced, murmured now in her veins. Claim, 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 claim! She opened her eyes. The hush had broken. Beyond the shutter slits, horns sounded. 1, 2, 3. Notes rising as dawn at last spilled across Winterfell. The call went unanswered for a heartbeat. Then drums thundered from the distant courtyard, signaling gates drawn wide. Riders arrived, perhaps new ravens, perhaps the last of the harvest carts. But to LYANNA, the horns spoke one message only. It is now. She settled the circlet inside her fur-lined satchel, cinched the cords tight. Then she swung into the saddle, whispered, "Wind," and heeled the mare toward the postern door. Cold needled her cheeks as she emerged into the half-light. She kept to the shadow of the outer wall, steering toward the narrow sally port that opened upon the hunter's path. No sentry challenged her. She wore the stark sigil, and many guards had been bribed with nothing more than a smile and a whispered assurance that Lady LYANNA trained her horse. Yet as she crossed beneath the arch, she glimpsed a lone figure upon the battlements above. Benjen, chin propped on gloved fists, watching with owl-eyed curiosity. He raised one hand in greeting. She returned the gesture, forcing calm, and rode on before concern could seed. Out upon frost-awaiting fields, the mare broke into a canter, hooves muffled by snow-dusted grass. Winterfell fell behind, like a dark ship moored amid a pale sea. The air tasted of iron and promised deeper cold before midday. She cherished the sting. It reminded her she was alive, blood thrumming, soul unfrozen. Turnip Hill reared ahead, a modest rise crowned by stone outcroppings where wild turnips once grew riot. She guided the mare up the slope, breath pluming. At the summit, she drew rein. North and east unfurled a tapestry of rolling white, edged with frost-limbed forest. South, the King's Road stretched unseen, winding toward Barrowton, toward the Neck, toward courts of gilded steel and southern debt. LYANNA dismounted, the mare snorting steam. Wind tugged at her sable cloak until it snapped like a banner. She unlatched the satchel, drew forth the circlet, holding it aloft as the sun's first full ray crested the horizon. The garnets glimmered. The weirwood leaves seemed to whisper. She set the circlet upon her brow. Cold flared across her scalp, but a fiercer heat answered within. Flame of old blood awakened. She closed her eyes. The land itself seemed to shiver, or perhaps it was her body sensing the planet's slow heartbeat. In the stillness, she fashioned one thought and wrought it into a vow that no iron could bend. I am the North, and the North bows only to its own. When she opened her eyes, the world appeared sharper. Every drift, every black pine needle, every mote of ice dancing in the wind cut with crystalline clarity. She breathed it in, tasted pine, tasted snow, tasted certainty. From a leather cylinder fixed to her saddle, she drew a length of dark wool. Unfurling it revealed a banner new made, a direwolf stitched in silver thread upon northern gray. But above the beast's head, a crown of intertwined weirwood branches bled crimson leaves. She affixed it to a spear haft, planted the butt in the frozen earth, and stepped back. The wind caught cloth. The banner snapped once, twice, and then unfurled, billowing high. Against pale dawn it seemed alive, wolf lunging, crown aflame. LYANNA Stark, fourth child of Lord Rickard, would linger no longer in corridors of men's making. She bowed her head, whispered, "For the first men, for winter's children, for every northern girl told no." And then she mounted again. She spurred the mare eastward, downhill toward the first hamlet of Wintertown, where cobbled lanes twisted between squat stone cottages. Smoke from cook fires spiraled lazy against the paling sky. She rode slow, letting townsfolk mark her sigil, her circlet, the banner trailing like storm cloud behind. Frozen mud muffled hoofbeats and hurried steps alike. Children blinking sleep from their eyes gaped slack-jawed, and a potter dropped a bundle of clay shards that shattered anew upon the street. At the well square she drew rein. Her voice, when it rose, carried strange calm, as though the wind itself spoke through her throat. "Gather," she called. "Hear the words of LYANNA star." Only a handful dared at first. Old LYANNA the breadwife, her gray braid crusted with flour. "Tomer Miller's boy, scarf askew. 2 guards off night watch, eyes red grim." They paused, uncertain. LYANNA waited. Snow sifted, melting on her cloak. She lifted gloved palm to sky so all might see the circlet. "I am daughter of Winterfell, of the blood of kings of winter. I claim my birthright, claimed once by queens, with steel in their hearts when direwolves wore saddles of weirwood bark. This dawn I crown myself queen in the north, that no southern lord may bind our children's futures in bronze chains of coin and vow." Swallowed the words. Then LYANNA knelt. Clay dust puffed from her skirts. Tomer followed, though his knees trembled. One guard, then the other. A boy no older than 8 copied them, puzzled but solemn. LYANNA's throat tightened. She had not expected such swift obeisance. She raised her hand again. "Rise. Queen I may be, but no woman or man kneels to me, save by choice. Stand as free folk of winter." Let word spread. Winterfell holds a queen again. Nilly, Nuntradi, Rush. As the townsfolk gathered courage, in pairs, in cautious clusters, LYANNA spoke of harvest taxes, unfairly weighted to buy silk for King Aerys' idle court, of men unfit for the wall, because crown levies drained villages of their ablest, of merchant lords fattening on southern tithes while northern children iced their bones. She spoke of women promised south, like pigs to breeding pens, of knights laughing at maidens who rode as men. She spoke until her voice roughened like frost-etched glass, and the crowd grew. Snow melt dripped from eaves as dawn turned to morning, and in her heart she felt the first stirrings of wildfire, resolve spreading from earthen hearth to stone keep. When at last she rode north toward Winterfell again, 20 town children trotted beside her on ponies and shaggy farm nags, shouting half-formed oaths of fealty. Blacksmith Ronald marched with hammer slung. Scepter Lauren, frail though she was, followed with quiet smile. And the banner, silver direwolf beneath fiery weirwood crown, rippling. By the time castle walls loomed, murmurs raced ahead of her like winter wind. Lady LYANNA returns, crowned. Lady LYANNA summons us to choose. Gate guards who moments before had only rumors now confronted truth. They stared at circlet, at banner, at the men and women tailing her. One god's lips shaped a silent prayer. The other saluted with spear haft across chest and swung gate wide. Within the courtyard, grooms stumbled from stalls, squires paused mid-spar, scepters herded wide-eyed orphans toward chapel steps. LYANNA dismounted, frost crackling under her heel. She stroked the mare's neck once in thanks, then crossed the yard. The great hall doors loomed, oak banded in black iron. She reached for the left-hand ring. Before she could pull, the doors flung inward. Brandon Stark strode out like a storm-given man's shape. Broad shoulders swaddled in fur-lined cloak, sword belt hanging heavy, hair a tangle of brown sable over fierce eyes. Behind him towered their father, Lord Rickard, face carved in basalt, and Ned, and Benjen. "LYANNA!" Brandon barked, gaze locking on the circlet. What madness is this? In the hush that followed, Guards flanking pillars, servants clustered under galleries, ravens croaking somewhere high. LYANNA felt a curious serenity. She lifted chin, letting torches catch garnets so they burned crimson. "No madness," she replied, calm as winter dusk. "Only awakening." Lord Rickard's lined brow furrowed. "Child, remove that trinket at once. You dishonor your betrothal. You shame this house." "Betrothal forged in convenience and sealed without my hand," she answered, voice low but carrying. "I am of the north, father. Our blood remembers old ways. A maid may choose her path if her courage is strong enough." Brandon's hand settled on sword hilt. "We are Starks. Duty binds us to the realm. Duty binds us to our people first," she countered. "And they suffer beneath Dragonstone's shadow." Rickard stepped forward. "You speak treason." "Truth," she said. "The same truth that lives in your heart, but dares not breathe." Brandon's voice trembled, not with fear but outrage. "And Robert Baratheon, you are promised. Promised to a Storm Lord who sees me as prize, not partner. I refuse gilded chains." "Nan?" Lord Rickard lifted a silencing hand. The hall breathed again. "If you will not bend, girl, then speak your demand." "My demand." She drew breath. "I wear no gold crown, no dragon sigil. I claim only what the North abandoned when Torrin knelt. Sovereign right to choose its destiny. I claim the crown of winters long past. I claim the title Queen of Winter. And I ask this house, my house, to stand with me." Gasps scattered like thrown pebbles. Ned's face paled, lips forming her name. LYANNA turned, sweeping gaze across gathered guards, stewards, grooms, distant master, hurrying from library arch. Some averted eyes, some met hers, astonished. She let silence bloom, fertile soil for seeds of possibility. Then she knelt, not in submission, but in solemn pledge, one fist pressed to stone. "If my own blood cannot support me, I will stand alone, but the North will hear, and the North will answer." A heartbeat. Tubinoshin, Shu. The first to move was Ned. He stepped forward, unsheathed the longsword ice practice twin, steel blue in torchlight, and laid the flat upon her shoulder. Voice rough. "I, Eddard Stark, second son of Lord Rickard, do swear to guard my sister, LYANNA of House Stark, in her claim and throne, so long as breath remains." He turned blade, tapped other shoulder. "What is mine is hers." Shock rippled. Benyon, younger still, but fierce-eyed, leapt beside Ned, dropping to one knee. "And I, Benjen Stark, pledge loyalty to our queen." Brandon stared, jaw set hard as granite. Conflict warred across his face, anger crushed beneath bone-deep love. He looked to Lord Rickard, whose expression shuddered. Outside, horns bled sudden alarm, 4 notes, urgent. A scout signal, riders approach, banners unknown. The hall shivered. LYANNA rose, heart pounding anew. She met her father's eyes. For the first time she saw fear there, thin as frost on aged stone. Fear not for her, but for all he built. "My queen," Ned said quietly, "give the word. We will bar gates or open them as you will." She exhaled, letting the breath flow through body, steadying. "Open them. Let all who come see truth." Brandon's fists unclenched. He rasped, "If this be folly, we share it." And he fell to one knee, bowing head. At last, Lord Rickard spoke, voice heavy. "Rise, children. Winterfell's blood must be one, else wolves devour each other." Slowly, painfully, he bent old knee beside Brandon. "If the North must crown, let it crown beneath this roof." He looked up, tears reflecting torchlight. "LYANNA, daughter, guide us wisely." A tremor racked her chest. She had imagined defiance, argument, perhaps exile. She had not imagined this. She extended hands to her brothers, to her father, drew them up. In that circle of stark blood, old lines dissolved. Horns sounded again, closer, and Lyanna Stark, new-crowned, squared shoulders. "Then let Winterfell greet its dawn," she declared, "and let the dragons hear the howl of northern wolves." Mid-morning sun hurled knives of light across the bailey as the Stark household gathered. Sir Roderick Castle rallied outer guard. Lady Barbary Dustin, in residence, pressed her black handkerchief to mouth, eyes glittering with something like glory. Old Nan wept quietly in kitchen doorway. The Winter Town townsfolk who had followed Lyanna now crowded just inside the gates, faces alight with awe and fright. The newcomers crested the bridge, two abreast, Mormont green, Surin gray, Tallheart green and blue, Hornwood sable moose. Banners bristled like spears above snow-dusted helms. At their center rode warhorses draped in dark wool, yet unmarred by travel grime. Ambassadors, not raiders. Leading them, Lord Medric Umber's massive frame dwarfed even his destrier. Moreover, he carried something unexpected. 2 ravens' tail quills bound in red twine, signal of urgent part. They reigned before the gatehouse. Lord Medric bellowed in a thunderous baritone. "By the gods of earth and frost, we come seeking Lady Lyanna Stark," called Wolfmaid, rider of still waters. "Where stands she?" The crowd parted like grain before scythe. Lyanna strode forth, cloak trailing. She wore simple boiled leather jerkin over her gown now, saber at hip. Not for show, but conviction. She stopped before the gate, lifted chin. "Here," she answered. Medric eyed the circlet, a slow grin carving through his thick beard. "Rumor carries quickly down the last river, my lady. Or should I say my queen? You should speak the truth you believe, my lord." He swung down from saddle with grace, surprising in such bulk, bowed low. Truth then. Last night 2 ravens reached last hearth, one from Winterfell's own rookery, sealed by Maester Wales, speaking of southern levies taking grain stores. Boys clapped in irons for refusing to march. The other from White Harbor, warning that Lord Menderley senses crown ships massing at White Knife's mouth. "We lighter houses smell war, and war breeds crowns." Beside him rode Lady Mage Mormont, her eyes hard as polished basalt. She dismounted, removed her gauntlet, and extended hand, palm up, bearing a strip of green cloth, upon which a white bear had been hastily inked. "The North remembers island queens," she said. "House Mormont stands with daughters who bear teeth." Lyanna accepted the cloth, closing fingers around it. "Your faith honors me." Tallheart, Surin, Hornwood followed, each kneeling, offering tokens. A pine cone burned black, a dagger of flint older than castles, an antler tine carved with runic swirls. Each pledge like a drum beat beneath her ribs. With each, she felt the north stir. A giant rousing after centuries' chain, but oath still missing. Lord Manderley, Lord Glover, Garstocks, the Boltons. She marked their absence as one marks storms on the horizon. Yet momentum gathered. The yard filled with ragged cheers. Servants seized horns of ale, pouring for arriving men. Beneath the banners, she glimpsed little Beth Castle, dancing snow-footed about the spear butt of her banner. On the battlements, ravens wheeled, cawing as though mocking southern courtiers still snug in feather beds. Lyanna climbed the stair to the walkway above the gatehouse, and let winter wind claw her braids free. She surveyed the sea of faces. Men gray-haired, women round with child, smiths with arms like hammers, maids clutching baskets, each looking to her with something raw. Trust, yes, but more. Hunger. Hunger for a world where their voices carried weight. She raised arms. Voices died. In the songs she began, they speak of winter's kings who rode out to drive back snow demons at the world's edge. of queens who wove mage lace spells into direwolf collars so Pack would never starve, of hearth wives who led clans when war stole the men. They call those tales fancy, but we know bones lie beneath truth. No roar followed, only silent, rapt attention, which felt weightier. She took breath. I claim no right through dragonfire or Valyrian steel, only through the oath that thrums in every heart born to winter, to shield our kin, to meet justice in the old way, and to stand unbent as ironwood. If you would have me carry that oath as queen, speak now. A hush one might pour into chalice. Then Medric Umberth thrust fist in air, shouting wordless approval. Maid Mormont followed. A tall hard horn sounded, deep and rolling. The noise spread, stomps like avalanche, cheers jagged as ice flows, ululations of spearwives near the rear. Wolves in the kennels howled, chorus layered upon human roar, until the walls themselves seemed to hum. Lyanna lowered arms slowly, heart drumming a rhythm older than fear. She turned inward, whispering to Ned, Brandon, Benjen assembled behind her. Now the harder path begins. Ned inclined head. We walk it together. Brandon's grin flashed feral, electricity in his eyes. Let Eris send his gold cloaks. We will nail their helms to our gates. She met his gaze. We shall try diplomacy first. Your Majesty, Sir Roderick interjected, bowing. The Winterfell blacksmiths stand ready to reforge lost crowns if it please you. She smiled wryly. It pleases me less than feeding the villages before first frost. Begin with plow blades. Roderick blinked, then grinned back like a youth. As you command. Word flew faster than ravens. By nightfall, the Carhold road churned under hooves. Karstark bannermen rode for Winterfell, but whether sword in hand or palm extended remained unknown. In the God's Wood, Lyanna knelt before the heart tree, the red sap tears, mirroring garnet, encircle it, and let the old gods witness vows too quiet for human ear. Ned stood watch at Grove's edge, sword across knees, though no one disturbed. Brandon drilled footmen until moonlight glazed helms silver. Benjen delivered letters by swift horse to White Harbor, sealed with new wax stamp. Dire wolf under weirwood crown. Maester Royce dispatched ravens to every northern keep, and to Bear Island's cliff rookery, as well as uncertain missives south. One to John Arryn of the Eyrie, whose honor might chance alliance. One to Stannis Baratheon at Storm's End, though wisdom doubted reply. None to King's Landing, not yet. Inside, Lord Rickard Solar, father and daughter, spoke long, low. He recounted numbers, stores of grain, barrels of salt pork, yardage of wool, counts of able-bodied men. She countered with plan. Divert traders from White Harbor to Barraton before Royal Fleet could blockade. Offer tax relief funded by Castle Silver. Call a harvest convening at Moat Cailin to swear lords in person. My coffers strain, Rickard warned. Better coffers than people, she answered. Midnight's hush yielded to Wolf's distant hymn. In crypts beneath castle, dust settled on old kings' stone brows. Far south, in Dragonstone's seat of scalding rock, perhaps a Targaryen prince dreamed of blue roses and laughed. In King's Landing, perhaps mad King Aerys stirred in restless, smoky slumber, unaware of a storm's first rumble. Above Winterfell, northern lights shimmered faint green across black velvet sky. A veil parting, revealing road unexplored. Lyanna Stark circled aglow in the lantern's mellow flame, dipped quill and drafted her first decree in firm, unflinching strokes. Let it be known, the North crowns its queen, Lyanna of House Stark. Let no man or woman be forced south to fight the wars of foreign kings. Let every village tithe half what the crown would demand, and let Winterfell bear the rest. Let widows receive grain before knights receive silver. Let the harvest proceed unmolested. Let the free folk beyond the wall find welcome should they pledge peace. Let the people's voice ring as clear as winter morning, and know their queen will answer. She sanded the parchment, sealing with gray wax pressed beneath the direwolf crown. She held it a moment, pulse thrumming. Then she set it aside for dispatch. 5 hours had passed since dawn found her in silent gallery. 5 hours, and the north had changed course. Yet the night remained young. She rose, stretched tired limbs, and moved to tower window. Winterfell shimmered beneath moon and torch. Every battlement, every roof crusted white, every walkway traced by lantern glow. Voices drifted, guards laughing, maids singing low, hounds barking at shadows. Life pulsed through the old stone, stronger than she had ever felt it. Her breath fogged the glass. A reflection stared back, dark hair tousled, cheeks flushed, circlet gleaming. Not the wolf maid of songs, not the southern damsel promised, but something new, ancient, necessary. A sound behind, a knock, soft. She turned. It was old Nan, apron dusted with flour, eyes shining. "My queen," Nan quavered, curtsying. LYANNA's heart caught. She crossed swiftly, lifted the old woman upright. "You are no queen to me," Nan whispered, tears bright. "You're the babe I rocked when frost blew through shutter cracks." LYANNA hugged her, scenting cinnamon and smoke. Nan's frail arms held fierce. "Keep your heart," Nan said into her ear. "Queens can grow hard as ironwood, and ironwood may crack come deepest freeze." "I will remember." LYANNA kissed her graying hair. Nan drew back, wiped cheeks. "The kitchens prepare honey oatcakes. Shall I send a plate?" "Please, and mulled wine. It will be long night yet." Nan tottered out. LYANNA sank onto window bench, watching the breath swirl. Somewhere distant, a raven cawed thrice, unsettled omen or simple hunger she could not say. She drew knees to chest. Tomorrow she would ride to Moat Cailin to meet Karstark envoys. Tomorrow she would weigh alliances. Tomorrow she would begin training women of Wintertown and Bowcraft at Sir Roderick's suggestion. Tomorrow she would write a letter to Robert she might never send. For now, she allowed herself a single fragile moment. She listened to Winterfell's heartbeat echo against hers, felt the crown's cold bite atop skull, felt both exhilaration and dread twine like twin serpents around her spine. She whispered to dark, "Hold fast," and the dark whispered back, "We remember." Snow began to fall anew, soft, endless, weaving white mantle of her keep. LYANNA watched until her eyelids drooped, until torches guttered low. In slumber she dreamt of white wolves running across frozen lakes under veils of green fire, and at their head a woman cloaked in night wearing a crown of leaves and garnets, her laughter carving paths through silence the way rivers carve stone. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft as a secret, sealing the day's oaths beneath a white blanket. The north would one day lift again, to study, to question, to measure. But not yet. Tonight, the north slept under the gaze of a queen newly crowned, and the wind through tower crests carried a song no southern ear would recognize. The wolf maid rose at breaking dawn, set crown of leaf and blood-word stone, and called the north to stand as one, till dragon's fire at last lay gone. So the wolves howled, and winter listened, and the long tale wove on. The sun had scarcely cleared the line of sentinel pines when LYANNA slipped from the castle's postern gate with only Ned and a pair of sworn shield maidens for company. She rode wind again, the gray mare's hooves crunching through fresh snowfall that had drifted like sifted sugar in the hours before dawn. A hush pressed close, thick with the weight of things unsaid. until even the jingle of the mare's bit sounded like hammered bronze. They took the hunter's path that skirted the Wolfswood's ragged edge, avoiding the King's Road in case southern eyes already watched. Overhead, high clouds smeared the pale sky in streaks of silver, promising clearer weather by midday. Underfoot, the land lay raw, frost-cracked puddles between clumps of sedge, tufts of dead heather poking like quills through white. Breath plumed from horse and rider alike, mingling and unraveling behind them. Ned rode beside her on a rangy courser the color of storm water, his cloak hood raised against the bite of cold. He had donned mail under dark wool, though no heraldry marked him save a small direwolf brooch at his throat. The shield maidens, Sirette and Isla, followed by a dozen lengths, furs wrapped tight, axes at their saddlebows. All four kept their gaze moving, wary. LYANNA's thoughts roiled louder than the crunch of hooves. The night past had brought no sleep, only candle stubs consumed to black nubs, while she wrote edicts, weighed grain tallies, and penned a private letter to Brandon, asking him to temper his fire with caution. Dawn had broken before she laid quill aside. Now, with each clop and crunch, she rehearsed the coming parley. Lord Harrion Karstark's envoy would wait near Moat Caelan's ruined towers. He was cousin to Rickard Karstark, heir to Karhold, and known for shrewd counsel. If she stoked his loyalty, Karhold's swords might bolster her nascent crown. Yet Karstark's bore stubborn pride. A misstepped word could set them against her, and there were whispers that Lord Harrion's sister Alice had been promised to a crown loyalist in Old Town. Alliances shifted like snow on thawing earth. Ned broke the silence first, his voice low. "You intend to greet the envoys alone?" "Not alone," she answered. "With you and the shield maidens, but without a retinue of spears. Show trust, invite trust. Nunsh, Gaunsh. Trust is coin scarce in war. It is also weapon when wielded well." She risked a smile he could not see beneath her hood. "Besides, what threat can Karstarks pose 3 against 4? He huffed. "They might bring more than 3. Then a retinue of spears would not tip the scales." He conceded with a small incline of his head. They rode on. Hours later, the marshlands surrounding Moat Caelan spread before them like a sodden quilt. Low reed beds shimmered beneath thin ice. Pools of half-frozen water reflected the sky like cracked mirrors. Causeway, raised in elder days by armored giants, some said, climbed from fen to grassy hummock, where the first black stone tower clawed at the pale sky. Broken arrow slits gaped like eye sockets. Farther on, 2 more towers leaned, as though conspiring. At the causeway's foot, 5 riders waited. Their cloaks billowed gray-white, and the sun flashed on polished helms where the Karstark sigil of black sunburst upon white was etched into metal. One bore a long staff tipped with a pennon. Not the sigil, but a plain square of ragged cloth, half white, half black. "Parley, ... LYANNA slowed Wind to a walk, lifting her gloved hand in greeting. Ned mirrored her. The shield maidens fell back 3 lengths. The Karstark riders advanced. The lead dismounted, tall, spare-framed, with close-cropped iron-gray beard, and removed his helm. Lines cross-hatched his brow, but his eyes held the watchful patience of a man used to waiting out long winters. "Lady LYANNA," he greeted, voice gravel yet steady. "I am Torrin Karstark, sworn to house Karstark, envoy for Lord Harrion. My lord sends apologies. Road and duty bind him at Dreadfort today." "Nay." The mention of Bolton's stronghold pricked LYANNA's wariness, but she schooled her face. "Well met, Sir Torrin. You come in peace, in parley, under guest right." He glanced at Ned. "Sir Eddard Stark," Ned supplied. The envoy's brows rose. "Winterfell sends a son and escort. Honor enough." LYANNA urged Wind forward until she and Torrin stood near enough to clasp 4 arms. She dismounted, boots squelching on firmed mud, and accepted his forearm in the old warrior's grip. "My thanks for riding hard through night snow. Karstarks are children of winter," he said. "Night snow is cradle song." She released him, gesturing toward the broken tower. "Shall we speak within? The wind bites." "Lead, your grace." The title settled between them, like new fallen snow. Ned's shoulders eased an inch. Inside the tower, the spiral stair had collapsed centuries past, leaving a half-open chamber ringed by tumbled stone. Wind whistled through cracks. A lone rook perched upon a crumbled lintel, eyeing them with oil-black bead. Ned retrieved a travel brazier from his saddlebag, struck flint, and soon thin smoke trickled upward, coaxing faint warmth from charred coals. Torrhen's men remained outside with the shield maidens. LYANNA unpinned her cloak, folding it to sit upon a stone block. Torrhen knelt on another, removing gloves. Ned stood sentry near the arched opening where dim winter light slanted across mossy flagstones. She began, without preamble. "You know what I have claimed." "The North has heard," Torrhen said. "Some call it bold, some call it folly. Perhaps both. But bold folly once gave us freedom before Torrhen's stark bent knee. No zizi, LYANNA. Ay." He studied her circlet. "Many in Karhold admire audacity, yet we trade with White Harbor, and White Harbor sends most of its silver south. Lord Harrion wonders what coin shall replace that when crown levies bleed no longer." LYANNA dipped her head, acknowledging fair concern. "Harbor coin flows south because dragons demand it. If silver remains in the north, markets will adapt. White Harbor may trade east, across narrow sea. Bare Island's lupine hides fetch dear price in Bravos. Nori Amber does likewise in Pentos. Nay, trade ships fear pirates," Torrhen countered. "The Crown Fleet patrols." "The Crown Fleet exacts tolls," Ned cut in. Torrhen's mouth twitched. "True." He turned back to LYANNA. "Yet silver aside, Karhold fears swords. If King Aerys sends Southron hosts, we stand first line east of Last River." LYANNA reached into satchel, withdrew a folded vellum map. ... She spread it across her lap, smoothing creases. Inked markings showed forts planned along the shivering shore, garrison points, stockade lines. "I drafted this with Sir Roderick and Lord Medric last night. If Karstark banners join mine, construction of earthworks begins come first thaw. Mormont loggers pledge timber. Umber axes guard the shivering shore. We fortify as our forebears did against raiders." Torrhen's eyes narrowed in appraisal. "Ambitious. Such works demand labor. Volunteers already step forward in Wintertown, fed and paid from Winterfell stores." She held his gaze. "I will not ask men to die for me while I feast." The envoy remained silent a long moment. Outside, a gust rattled arrow-slit stones. At last he said, "Your words carry the ring of Winterfell steel. But there is other matter." "Say it." "Lord Harrion fears the Boltons. They entertain king's emissaries even now. Should they side with Crown, Karhold lies between hammer and anvil." LYANNA rolled the map, tucking it away. "Ramsay Bolton holds his lord father's ear. Ramsay hung Karstark men for poaching boar near Weeping Water. Boar feeding on Karstark oats, no less. Do you deem Bolton a stalwart ally?" Torrhen's beard bristled. "No." "Then let us forge alliance first. In unity, we outflank Bolton by numbers. Should Dreadfort move south, we fall on their rear. Should they march north, we bar Moat Cailin and starve them in Fen." "None, yin, doge," he considered, fingers drumming thigh. "And my sister, Elise," LYANNA guessed. "Ay, she is promised to Sir Kendry of Old Town," he said. "A political match Harrion arranged to secure spice trade. If we sever allegiance to Crown, Old Town may consider betrothal void." Lyanna weighed swift. Bring Alice to Winterfell. I will see her settled with lands and rights equal to any lord's daughter. Winterfell scribes can draft charter shielding Carhold exports through a direct pact with White Harbor. That net will replace spice tariffs lost to Old Town, and Elise will have freedom of northern match, perhaps a Mormont or Tallheart, forging more bonds. Me, Avantabilis Yestamon. Silence again, heavy with calculation. Torrent's gaze slipped past her, to Ned standing sentinel. Ned's face gave nothing. The envoy rose, bowing low. I will carry this to my lord. Word may come within 10 days. 10 days, she agreed. She rose, clasped forearms again. Ride safe. He donned gloves, helm, and strode out, boots echoing. Ned exhaled softly. Outside, the shield maidens exchanged wary nods as the Karstark riders mounted. Torrhen hailed a brief farewell, then the five rode north, pennon snapping. Lyanna climbed upon wind, but hesitation caught her. She looked back at the ruined tower, its mossy stones stark against brightening sky, and felt the weight of every promise spoken within. Ned joined her, his eyes questioning. Did we win them? He asked. We planted a seed, she said. Now we pray frost spares the shoots. They turned south onto Causeway. The mare picked careful steps across frozen ruts. Behind, Moat Caelan dwindled. They returned to Winterfell by dusk, trailing icy sleet that rattled on pauldrons and leather. Lanterns glimmered behind arrow loops, guiding them toward the gatehouse. Horns signaled arrival, ropes strained, oak doors swung wide. Inside the yard, controlled chaos reigned. Wagons of barley and dried beans rolled toward storerooms. Smiths hammered spearheads, grooms led shaggy Carhold garrons into the northern stable row. News indeed. As wind nickered, a squire dashed forward, taking reins. Benjen ran from the far side, cloak flapping. Karstark banners approach! He shouted before they dismounted. Lyanna's heart hopped against ribs. Torrhen rides fast. Karstark colors, yes, under white banner of parley. But a day sooner than possible. Benjen's cheeks flushed not from cold alone. Ned frowned. Another envoy? Could be Rickard Karstark himself, Benjen guessed. They camped beyond the Tumblestone Ford. Father convenes council in the solar. Lyanna passed reins to groom, dusting sleet from circlet. Then as attend, they trod along torchlit colonnade, boots thumping. Within Lord Rickard's solar, crackling logs painted walls orange. Brandon stood before hearth, jaw tight. Maester Wise pored over scrolls at small desk. Lord Rickard appeared drawn, but rose when they entered. Before anyone spoke, feet stomped outside. A guard opened door to admit a figure in sodden cloak. Young woman, snow-crusted, eyes dark as ravens. She stripped hood back, revealing ink-black braid coiled about her head like serpent. Armor of scaled leather hugged lean shoulders. At belt hung curved arak, foreign to northern eyes. Lyanna recognized her by description. Alice Karstark. The chamber stilled. Alice strode forward, dropping to one knee before Lord Rickard. My lord, I ride with blessing of my brother Harrion to place Carhold's fate in Winterfell's hands. Rickard's brows lifted. Rise, child, you bring new wind. She rose, gaze flicking to Lyanna, and to pledge Carhold's banners to Queen Lyanna, if she'll keep her word and shield our folk from bolted knives. Lyanna stepped to meet her. In Alice's eyes burned storm of determination. They clasped arms. My word stands, Lyanna said. Carhold and Winterfell share blood beyond name. Master Wise coughed softly, drawing parchment from sleeve. There is more, your grace. A raven from White Harbor. He offered scroll. Lyanna unfurled it. Lord Wyman's seal, green merman crowned. Lines in heavy script. Queen in the north. White Harbor awaits your envoy to discuss coin and crown. Relief surged. She handed scroll to Rickard. Harbor aligns. Brandon's laugh rang rich. Then by the old gods, half the north stands with us already. Half is not whole, Ned cautioned. Rickard waved him close to map table. Let us tally, he ordered. They gathered. LYANNA, Ned, Brandon, Benjen, Alice, Wally's, Sir Roderick. Iron shod tokens marked Carhold, Last Hearth, Bear Island, Hornwood, Tolhart, Mormont. Others uncertain set aside. Glover, Pincone, Bolton, Flayed Man, Risewell, Stallion, Manderley, Merman, though latest missive hinted hope. Across the neck, a wooden dragon token represented southern threat. Word from the wall? LYANNA asked. Wally's shook head. Ravens delayed by storm, but Lord Commander Corgyle seldom meddles south. Then we lean on what we have, Rickard said. Carhold's swift pledge, freeze Winterfell to Courthouse Glover. Deepwood's timber and shipwrights crucial. Brandon, you will ride at dawn. Brandon's grin widened. Gladly. I'll outdrink Galbart Glover and secure his fealty. Do not outdrink yourself, Ned muttered. Rickard turned to Alice. Your journey taxed you. Rest tonight. On the morrow we draft treaty inscribing mutual defense and trade. Alice inclined her head. My thanks, Lord Stark, and your grace. She addressed LYANNA. My brother entrusts me to speak for Carhold henceforth. Then you will have seat at council, LYANNA affirmed. North needs women's voices sharper than any sword. Alice's eyes glimmered approval. As council dispersed, Brandon caught LYANNA's arm. Walk with me. They slipped into corridor where sconces flame. He leaned close, voice hushed. Tomorrow I ride west, but before I leave, I would see you prepared. For power crooks men's hearts and women's. His gaze flicked to circlet. Our father bends now, but not all lords will. When swords are drawn, be ready to play the game you have started. I am ready. I hope so. He squeezed her shoulder with rough affection, then strode off. LYANNA watched him go, shadows chasing his boots. Alone, she traced fingers along the weirwood leaves of her crown, felt their cold bite. That night, sleep eluded her again. She donned plain tunic and fur-lined boots, and left chambers by servant's stair. Winterfell lay hushed, save for occasional clank of sentry spear or distant howl of kennel hounds. She descended to crypts, bearing a single lantern. The carved direwolves lining walls cast serrated shadows. She moved among stone kings, Brandon the Breaker, Torrin the last, unnamed queens of winter whose features time had blurred. At last she found Mother's statue, Lyanna Stark, gentle brow and hands resting on knees, and knelt. Lantern light licked stone cheeks. LYANNA studied lines she knew by heart, the slope of Mother's nose, the small indent at chin. She laid palm on cold stone hand. Mother, she whispered, I have done a thing beyond any song you sang to me, and the tides rush in so fast. You. Silence answered, yet she thought she felt warmth against her palm, illusion of grief. Her throat tightened. I must be strong, she said, for Ned, for Benjen, for the North, but I am still your daughter. She bowed her head. Moments passed like snowfall. At length she rose, brushing tears. Above, the howl of a wolf. Not kennel hound, but wild from God's wood perhaps, echoed through chill air. It sent prickles along her neck, yet steadied her heart. She climbed from crypts, lantern guttering low. In courtyard, fresh snow painted the ground again. She crossed to the Godswood gate, beyond woven iron. The heart tree glimmered white, face red sap weeping. Lantern dwindled to ember, so she snuffed it and moved by moonlight. Under ancient boughs, she stripped cloak, kneeling before the heart tree. She placed bare palm to bowl, letting bark's chill drink her warmth. Old gods, she prayed without words, watch me. Wind stirred branches. A single red leaf drifted, landing upon her shoulder. She smiled. Dawn cracked gold. Horn blasts roused Winterfell. Brandon rode out west under Glover banner, 24 horse behind. Benjen departed east with Sir Roderick, escort for Alice to guide her men home and oversee Carhold muster. Ned remained to organize stores and supervise smithy expansion. LYANNA spent the morning in training yard, trading blows with Surette. The shield maiden's axe clanged against LYANNA's borrowed round shield. Sweat iced on brow. Onlookers, stable hands, young squires, even old Nan perched on barrel, watched the queen fight, eyes wide. When LYANNA knocked Surette's axe aside and laid practice blade against the woman's neck, cheers erupted. She removed helm, hair clinging damp at temples, and addressed crowd. Steel of Winterfell will not rest in racks. Any woman who wishes to learn sword or bow come at dawn tomorrow. Murmurs spread. Some skeptical, some electrified. A 12-year-old stabble-girl piped. Even me. LYANNA nodded. The girl grinned gap-toothed. After wash and meal, LYANNA met Lord Rickard and Maester Ways in Solar. Wally's read a new raven. Lord Roose Bolton offers congratulations on Winterfell's prosperity and hopes to feast with his northern peers at Dreadfort, come first thaw. Rickard's mouth tightened. He sniffs, he said. No pledge, but no threat. Wolf and leech do not share flesh long, LYANNA murmured. Wallis reported that White Harbor convened merchants to discuss exclusive export contracts free of crown tariffs. They requested envoy with Queen's signet. LYANNA appointed Ned to lead 50 riders south within 2 days. Next, a white knife fisherman's tale. Royal galleys sighted near Sisterton, sails furled. Unverified, but Wise marked it. If Dragonstone sends fleet, Rickard muttered, they aim to cow Manderley. Uncle Wyman does not cow, LYANNA countered. But we must secure coast fortifications. Orders drafted. Bear Island to ship ironwood. Tall Hearts provide thatch for watch posts. Umber Raiders to patrol coast. They work through midday, quills scratching. Outside, Winterfell bustled. Coopers repairing barrels, carpenters raising new archery butts, smiths forging plowshares as directive. Late afternoon, a scout thundered into yard. Ravensport sails spied off Cape Kraken. Sigils unknown, but hulls sleek. Rickard summoned war council. LYANNA paced before hearth as Sir Roderick described positions on crude slate map. ... Could be Ironborn, he mused. Ironborn relish chaos, Ned said. If they sent north divided, they'll raid. We have little to steal yet, Benjen observed. Returned sooner than expected. But they crave captives. LYANNA halted, pacing. Send Raven to Deepwood Motte. Lady Sybil Glover must fortify coast villages. And call archers to Seaguard Tower. She turned to Sir Roderick. Select 40 riders, veteran, to reinforce Motte at once. Roderick bowed. Discussion rolled into dusk. As Cresset sputtered low, Rickard dismissed council to rest. LYANNA lingered, muscles humming with memory of blade work. Ned stayed, rolling map. You push hard, he said. The snow melts only in spring, she replied. We must lay seeds now. He studied her, gray eyes soft. Promise me you'll rest. She smiled faintly. Soon. After Ned withdrew, she sank into chair by dying hearth. Flames guttered to coals. Her eyelids drooped. Dreams claimed her. She rode across field of blue winter roses taller than men. Their petals bruised 'neath hooves, bleeding sapphire sap that steamed in cold. Ahead, rose a wall of black ice. At its top stood Robert Baratheon in mail, antler helm shadowing face, shouting her name. She tried to answer, but roses clung, tangling reins. From behind the wall a dragon shrieked, wings unfurling, wreathed in red flame. Robert vanished. The wall melted. Fire and roses mixed into torrent of blue and crimson. She awoke with start, dawn-gray light seeping under solar drapes. Coals glowed faint. Her neck ached from odd angle. She rose, splashed water on face, donned riding leathers. Today she would train villagers at dawn. The archery yard smelled of fresh hay and tallow. A dozen women and girls assembled. Stable girl Marin, Baker Raina's niece Jane, midwife Sansa of Wintertown, even 3 elderly spinners who claimed eyesight sharp enough still. Seret and Isla distributed yew-bows long unused. Lyanna demonstrated stance, draw, loose. She corrected elbows, straightened backs. Arrows thudded into straw butts, some wide, some near bulls. Marin's first shaft struck out her ring. Her grin split wide. Word spread. By next bell, 2 score stood in queue. Lyanna taught until arms burned, heart soaring. Later, she oversaw forging of lighter practice, swords sized for smaller frames. The yard rang with laughter and grunts. At noon, Ned departed south, banners whipping. Lyanna watched from battlement, pride mingling with dread. Afternoon, Alice returned from town market bearing ledger of pledged stores, barley, venison jerky, tanned hides. She and Lyanna pored over columns by lamplight, adjusting quotas. Evening brought Raven from Deepwood. Lady Cybele accepts charge, sales prepping. Good sign. But just as supper platters cooled, horns blared urgent at gate. Lyanna hurried to yard. A ranger in Night's Watch black, horse lathered, collapsed before Lord Rickard, thrusting sealed to. Rickard cracked wax, face blanching. He beckoned all to hall. Inside, Rickard read aloud, to Winterfell from Lord Commander Corgyle, wildling army masses east of the wall, led by raider Munda Crow-Eater, number unknown, but giants among them. They build siege engines. Corgyle asks North's aid should they breach. Murmurs erupted. Giants. Ziga engines. Winter's grim spectre. Lyanna's mind raced. Only handful of weeks since her crowning, and crises sprouted like mushrooms. Bolton tension, ironborn sails, wildling horde. All threads tangling in one tapestry. She rapped knuckles on table. Lord Commander stood by when we turned from crown. We return courtesy. Send ravens. Winterfell will march aid. Brandon returned midday, scowled. We cannot spare men. Southron armies gather, ironborn raid. Let the wall defend itself. Lyanna met his glare. If wall falls, wildlings sweep south unchecked. North bleeds twice. Rickard nodded slowly. She speaks true. Then at least let Bolton ride. Brandon growled. They crave battle. Bolton may ignore call. Allies warn. Or worse, secure their own lands, leaving others exposed. Sir Roderick stroked beard. One host may suffice, seasoned but swift. Great John Umber's riders best suited. Lyanna turned to Wallace. Dispatch Raven to Last Hearth. Summon the Great John to Winterfell for counsel. Brandon slammed fist. While we parley, giants topple wall. Then we ride to Last Hearth ourselves. Lyanna countered. Gather strength en route. Silence. Brandon's nostrils flared. Then he relented with nod. Ride at dawn. Shh. That night, Lyanna climbed the inner wall. Snow raged sideways, stinging her cheeks. She looked northward, though the wall lay leagues distant beyond veil of darkness. She imagined its immense shadow, its cold stones, the men in black upon it. alone. She felt small. Footsteps crunched. Benjen emerged, cloak flapping raven wing. He leaned on parapet, squinting into storm. Dreaming of far ice, he asked, listening to it. Wind howled along battlement. Benjen hugged arms. Brandon thinks you mad, but he will follow. He must. She breathed. Cloud. Are you content in Winterfell, Ben? He shrugged. Castle life suits me less than road. Giants, though, now that excites. She eyed him. Careful what you seek. He smiled, half wild. I look south first. Father says Old Town may send maesters to treat with us. All bring spies. He laughed soft. Thunder rolled distant. Strange for winter. Lyanna wrapped cloak tighter. Do you fear? Benjen asked. Every hour, she confessed. Yet fear is ice. Shape it into sword and it cuts. He considered, nodded. They stood a while, snow-coating hair and lashes. At last she spoke. Rest, dawn comes. He saluted, vanished. Lyanna remained, wind-tugging crown askew. She righted it. In storm's shriek, she thought she heard faint howl of direwolf, far, far away, rising to meet cry of giants across unseen snows. She imagined that clash of voices and knew the north would soon decide whether to sing in chorus or cacophony. She whispered to night, voice raw, "Hold fast." The night answered with icy lash across her face. But behind the sting lurked something almost gentle, like a mother's cold hand on fevered brow, promising wakefulness, promising fight. Gray dawn bled over Winterfell when two columns assembled before gate. Brandon's heavy horse, mail chiming, Glovered pinecone, pennants snapping. Lyanna's lighter escort, Seret, Isla, Baker's niece Jane with bow slung. A score of mixed townsfolk and guards. Grey John had answered Raven. Meet at Widow's Watch on 5th day. They would ride east, then north. Lyanna kissed Lord Rickard's cheek. Hold Winterfell. He squeezed her palm. And you hold fate. She mounted wind. Brandon atop chestnut stallion Stonehowl. Benjen defiant swung onto rangy gelding, though not ordered. Lyanna hid smile. Horn sounded. Thate groaned. They rode into white. Roads vanished beneath snowdrifts, but Umber scouts carved path. Daylight brightened and dimmed under thickening cloud. Near midday, they crossed fields where hares leapt from burrows, startled, bounding over crusted snow like scraps of ash. Toward dusk, they crested ridge overlooking barrows, ancient tombs of first men. There, tents clustered about smoking fires. Great John Umber strode forward, laughter booming across ridge. By the old gods, the wolf maid comes herself, he roared. Lyanna dismounted, clasping his forearm. He towered, feral grin in red beard. Welcome, Great John. Your fire warms leagues. He guffawed. Fire enough to scorch giants. He gestured to encampment. Ale flows. Sit. They gathered at central pit, torches crackling. Snow drifted, but fires burned hot. Around them, men and women of half a dozen houses mingled. North already knitting. Great John slammed horn of ale into Lyanna's hand. Drink. Then, plan. She drank deep, foam stinging lip. Brandon matched gulp, laughter returning. Once cups emptied, Great John spread hide map, smoothed by ale sticky palm. Corgyla's bird says giants near Storald's Point. We march to Last Hearth, gather more, then east to Queen's Ground Trail. 10 days hard ride. Lyanna traced line. Food. Mutt, send salted boar. Manderley sled salt cod if ice permits. He jabbed thumb at sky. Snow thick though, could bug sleds. Seret leaned, finger wicking grease from hide. We carry dried oats, cured goat. Enough for week, Benjen mused. Brandon frowned. Better raid Shadow Tower stores. Night's watch thin, LYANNA objected. We share not take. Great John grunted approval. They plotted routes until moon raised. Then LYANNA excused herself to walk among tents. Soldiers hailed her. She traded words, laughter. A Mormont spearwife pressed small stuffed bear into her glove. Token of respect. She thanked. Passed out a ring. She found Jane practicing draw on straw dummy. Lantern hung from staff. Snow flecked the girl's hair, but her shot flew true, thudding chest. LYANNA corrected stance, praised. Later she sought quiet ridge. From its crest she saw campfires flicker like fallen stars dotted across white. Above, aurora shimmered faint green, veil trembling. She sank to knees, resting sword across thighs. Deep inhalation filled lungs with ice and wood smoke. Tomorrow, they rode north again. Soon they would face giants. Past that, crown hosts, Ironborn, Bolton betrayal. Yet despite dread, fire flared inside. Fire of purpose. She remembered childhood ride with Brandon through snow-blown meadow. When he told her bravery was saddle, she must choose daily, mount or remain. Mount, she told herself now. She rose, brushing snow. Returning to camp, she thought of Winterfell, of hearth fires, of mother's stone hands. She thought of blue roses bleeding. She thought of giants. Then she whispered into cold, "Hold fast." The night wind gathered her breath and carried it northward, toward ice-shadowed wall, toward hearts of men who waited in black, toward all the sleeping north. The wind bore her vow, woven from fear and hope alike. And for a heartbeat, the world seemed hushed, as if listening. The ride to Last Hearth proved a gauntlet of snow-choked valleys and iced rivers. On fifth day, under bruised sky, they reached the Umber Keep, stout log palisade bristling with frost-rimmed pikes. Great John's own kin greeted with horns, gates swinging. Inside, hearth fires blazed so hot snow melted from cloaks in minutes. LYANNA convened council in Mead Hall. Great John, Brandon, Benjen, Lady Daisy Mormont, Galbart Glover, newly arrived, and Venerable Lord Huther Umber, Great John's uncle, whose age did not blunt his tongue. Whose age did not blunt his tongue. Ravens updated. Bolton riders sighted near Barrowlands, speaking of harvest taxes. Ironborn longships torched 3 netting villages off Stony Shore. Wildling horde close to 500 spear, 10 giants. Galbart urged dividing forces. One host Westwatch coast, another wall. Daisy argued concentration key. Voices clashed like steel upon shield. LYANNA lifted hand. Giants first, wolves full doomsel, we ride tomorrow dawn. Muttered assent. That night, Great John hosted feast of mammoth haunch, sweetened squash, nut brown ale. Minstrels played fiddle, warriors sang dirges of snow. LYANNA joined at high table but slipped away early to stable. She found wind under thick horse blanket, brushing mane, whispering comfort. She stroked mare's cheek. Beneath hoof straw she buried letter she had written to Ned. Words of courage, love, hope. Should she not return? She stood there long, eyes stinging. Outside, Brandon approached, mug in hand. You hide, sister. Preparing. He leaned on stall door. I wronged you with doubts. Your crown, it suits. She smiled. Steel suits you. He offered mug. She drank. Applejack, sharp. Brandon, she murmured. Should I fall? Protect our brothers. He gripped her shoulder. You will not fall. She met his gaze. Promise. He hesitated, then nodded. They embraced under lantern glow, breath mingling. At dawn they rode from Last Hearth. 600 spears, 200 archers, 100 riders. sledges laden with oat bread and dried boar. Snow glared under sun. They pressed north along King's Road spur, hooves crunching crust. By midday 7th, White Knife glittered to west. On 10th, gray ramparts of Queen's Crown ruins appeared. Scouts returned, wildling column sighted near Long Lake, giants leading, raiders trailing sledges of felled pines, ramming logs. Distance, 2 leagues. Camp formed in bowl of willows. Fires low, smoke masked with green willow boughs. LYANNA gathered captains. They formed plan. Archers in tree line flank. Riders faint along lake shore. Main shield wall hold ground north of ridge. Giants lured onto frozen shallows where ice thin. That night, snow swirled soft as ash. LYANNA lay on bedroll in command tent, sleep thin. She heard snorts of tethered horses, creak of leather, distant owl. In darkness she imagined giants' footfalls like drums. Before dawn she rose, donned mail, strapped circlet by leather thong. She paced camp, murmuring encouragement to sentries, clasping trembling hands, steadying nerves. On eastern horizon, sky paled. Horn sounded, 3 blasts from watch. Wildlings approach. Camp stirred. Armor clinked, pikes rasped from sheaths. LYANNA mounted, took place beside Greatjohn in front line. Snow dust whirled. Over ridge, first shapes lumbered huge, giants, hair wild, skins patched, clubs of uprooted pine. Behind came swirling mass of wildlings, raiders in furs, some with rusted mail, shields of bark or stolen Southron ire. Their battle cry rose, primal. Northern horns answered, deep, mournful. Archers loosed first volley. Shafts hissed, some clattering off hide shields, others sinking into flesh. A giant roared as arrow pierced thigh, staggering. LYANNA's heart hammered. She lifted sword, Varian edge gifted by Rickard. Frostbite. Sun broke clouds, glancing off blade like white fire. The wildlings charged. Shield wall met them with thunderous clash, steel on wood, screams, snarls. Snow churned red. LYANNA spurred wind along line, shouting orders. She slashed raider leaping at Benjen. Frostbite bit fur and bone. She heard mare's labored breath, smelled blood, sweat, pine tar. Giants advanced, swinging tree clubs. One smashed umber shield block, bodies flung. Greatjohn roared, spear driving between ribs of giant's calf. Giant howled, crashed to knee. Archers rained shafts into face until it fell, earth shaking. Another giant lumbered to frozen shallows. Brandon's riders feinted, drawing it onto thin ice. The beast swung, cracking surface. With mighty groan ice gave. Giant plunged waist deep, thrashing. Arrows peppered, exposed neck until water stilled red. Battle raged hours, sun climbed, flecking snow with diamond fire. Wildlings surged in waves. Northern line bent, held, bent. At midday, LYANNA's sword arm numbed. Yet she pressed, voice raw, rallying. The last giant charged shield wall north of ridge, roaring. LYANNA pivoted, spurred wind at flank. She ducked club stroke that felled pine. She slashed Achilles' tendon thick as rope. Giant bellowed, dropping. Serete, Isla, and James, flight of shafts drove into giant's eye, ending beast. Wildling morale cracked. Raiders broke, fleeing toward tree line. Rangers pursued, capturing dozens. One horn blast signaled cease. Snowfall hushed fields strewn with bodies, wildling and northern alike. Steam rose from blood pools. Carrion crows circled. LYANNA dismounted, knees shaking. She knelt beside fallen Umber Boy, eyes wide, chest still. She closed lids, whispering prayer. Around her, healers tended wounded, dragging living from red slush. Greyjohn stomped over, helmet dented. "Victory, my queen." Voice hoarse. "Costly," she replied. "Always costly." Brandon arrived, smeared in gore. Grin bleak. "We hold wall yet." LYANNA looked north, to ragged black line of wall visible faintly through snow. Monolith etched with sun's last rays. Smoke rose from shadow tower chimneys. She exhaled. "Tomorrow we aid Night's Watch repair," she said. Greyjohn saluted. Brandon nodded. She sheathed frostbite, removing helm. Cold bit sweaty brow. Night fell as pyres were lit. Wildling and northern dead separated by custom. Giants burned hotter, flames roaring into night sky. Smoke billowed. Under flickering glow, LYANNA spoke to assembled. "The North stands because we stand together. Sing for the fallen." Their song carries into halls of Winter Kings. Voices lifted, low at first, swelling, dirge of old tongue, haunting. LYANNA joined, throat aching, tears scalding cheeks. She saw Jean cradle wounded, arm yet sing. She saw Greyjohn's shoulders slump. When flames died to embers, she withdrew to ridge, circlet catching fireglow. She stared at wall looming black, thinking of wild unknown beyond, of foes still south, of Bolton knives, of Ironborn sails, of Baratheon's broken heart, perhaps turning wrathful. She felt weight of snow on cloak, weight of crown on brow, weight of sword at hip, but inside burned ember refusing quell. She whispered, "Hold fast," and wind answered with sigh across vast whiteness, carrying promise of battles yet, of dawns yet. Behind, camp settled into weary slumber, watchfires flickering. LYANNA remained until stars faded pale and morning crept. When Benjen approached to call her to rest, he found her still standing on ridge, frostbite planted before her, circlet gleaming with first touch of sunrise, wolf-maid crowned, Queen of Winter, Sentinel of the North, and the tale, like the long night, had only begun. We, Maun, Shirden. The great pyres had burned low by the time the eastern sky paled, their last embers winking crimson among the ash, like spent rubies embedded in soot. A hush descended over the makeshift camp at Queen's Crown, broken only by the crackle of cooling timber and the rustle of canvas in the river-cold breeze. LYANNA scarcely felt the ache of her sword arm anymore. Numbness had stolen in, feather-light and deceptively soft, as though her body meant to wrap her in cotton before the next storm arrived. But her mind remained sharp, too sharp, its edges keen as frostbite's mirror-bright steel. Sleep would not come, and so she paced the perimeter alone, long after even the most stubborn veterans had sought their bedrolls. She stopped at the crest of the western rise, looking back over the valley where so many had bled. New snow had masked most of the carnage, stitching a white shroud across churned earth and frozen pools of blackened red, yet here and there, a tuft of fur or the shattered haft of a spear protruded like broken bones, refusing burial. She pressed her palm against the circlet to still its faint tremor. "A queen's crown," some whispered, "should be gold and gemstone." Hers felt more like iron tatters stitched to flesh, each leaf a reminder of the price she had bid others pay. Boots crunched behind her. She did not turn. A familiar gait, Brandon limping slightly from a bruise below his left knee, where the last giant's club had grazed him. "Won't be long before the carrion birds descend," he said, voice husky with dawn chill. "Better we give the dead to the trees than let crows peck at their eyes." "The crows will come regardless," she answered, "but I'll not begrudge them a feast after last night. Even the winged have to eat." She managed a bleak smile. He stepped beside her, folded his arms, watched pale sun stain the horizon blood orange. I've seen you brood like this before. When mother died, when father announced your betrothal, when Benjamin nearly froze on the lake, each time you brewed a storm that drowned the last. Does this look like drowning? Her breath steamed white. He glanced at her circlet. Looks like forging, hot and ruthless. Just mind you don't temper too quick. Steel wants slow cooling lest it crack. She chuckled, surprised by the sound. Since when have you become maester of smithcraft? Since your crown made philosopher of me. His grin faded. I'm proud of you, Lya. The men speak your name like prayer. Even the Mormont spearwives call you she-bear of winter's wrath. None sure duty. Joy now, she said, but give them lean harvest and they'll mutter different hymns. She exhaled, tracking a flight of ash-gray crows circling north. We ought move soon. The bodies will draw wolves. Wolves are kin, Brandon said gently. Kin, but hungry. Let's be sure we feed them what we choose, not what they hunt in the night. She turned, cloak swirling, and started down the slope toward the watchfires that ringed the center of camp. By the time she reached the physician's tents, sunlight had pierced ragged clouds overhead, casting long spears of gold through drifting snow. A chorus of groans rose from within the canvas pavilions, men waking to pain newly kindled. Inside one, Maester Talbert of Last Hearth bent over a wounded boy, stitching leather-tough skin with sure fingers kissed by frostbite. LYANNA paused at the entrance. The smell of boiled wine and blood staggered her. Yet the boy, barely 15, bit through the agony with only a thin whimper. When Talbert tied off the final knot, the queen knelt. Your name? She asked. Jonan, your grace. He would not meet her eyes, perhaps shamed by the tear that cut a track through soot on his cheek. You kept the line when giants charged. Aye, your grace. Beyond the left flank, memory's fuzzy, but I recall a club the size of 2 men. His voice cracked. You recall enough, she said, and unclasped the silver bear token. Lady Dacey had pinned at LYANNA's sash the night before. This was given me in honor of courage. I pass it to you. She placed it in his trembling palm. You earned it thrice. The boy swallowed, eyes shining. Thank you, Queen. She rose before gratitude cut deeper. Brandon rejoined her outside, motioned east where Great John and Galbart Glover argued beside a sled loaded with pitch-soaked logs. Glover wants half the host to march westward at once, Brandon explained. Ironborn raiders harry the stony shore again. Great John says giants first, krakens later. LYANNA considered. Send word to Deepwood Mott. Lady Cybele must muster every archer she can and hold the coast. We keep the main strength unified another week, until the watch confirms the horde has scattered. Nah. Brandon nodded and strode off. She turned south, where a thin ribbon of black smoke snaked up from the wall silhouette. Her jaw tightened. Benjamin, she murmured, for she knew he was already there, volunteering among the rangers. Night's Watch brothers had arrived at dawn to bear news. Lord Commander Corgyle personally requested an audience, an unprecedented courtesy. LYANNA would go. By noon, she and a small honor guard rode north under a flag of gray and red leaves. The approach to the wall stunned even seasoned men, sheer face of ice towering like frozen thundercloud, fissured but resolute, a monument to mortal will. At the Shadow Tower gate, ravens croaked overhead, black smudges against an iron sky. Old God's breath, she thought, remembering Nan's tales of stone kings who laid bones in that ice. Lord Commander Corgyle greeted her in the antechamber, gaunt, weather-lined, eyes like chips of onyx. He bowed, more deeply than she expected. Your Grace, the watch thanks you. Without the North, we would have cracked. Nanthu, Nalresume, Guzzi. LYANNA sized him up, scar along his jaw, thin smile hiding exhaustion. We answer only as any child answers a parent's call. Lord Commander. The wall raised us all. Inside the mess hall, benches filled with black-clad swaths of men. But hush fell as she passed, half awe, half disbelief, that a queen walked those chill stone. Corgile led her to a wooden table. Benjen stood there, face bright with pride. She squeezed his forearm. Corgile spoke quickly. Munda Crow-Eater had been slain, rumor said, by one of his own clanswomen when giants failed. The horde fractured, many fleeing east of Storald's Point died. Giants left alive trudged back into haunted woods, but more tribes still lingered beyond Frostfang's biting spring. We must rebuild the gate mechanisms shattered last night, Corgile said, unfurling a parchment of diagrams. Ropes, winches, oak beams, beyond our stores. Winterfell's forestmen will send oak, LYANNA promised, and ironmongers at White Harbor will forge pulleys. Costly, Corgile observed. Cheaper than flood of raiders, she replied. He dipped his head. The watch will owe you. LYANNA held his gaze. Oaths aside, if the realm below fractures, even more than we know, the wall may stand alone. You need northern lords at your side. She paused. Will you catalog every wildling clan that seeks passage south in peace? Some may prefer plow to spear. Corgile's brow rose. You offer amnesty? I offer work, she said. Empty fields at Widow's Barrow, and Flint's finger-beg hands. Feed men, not ghouls. He exhaled slowly. A bold gambit, but boldness built this wall. He extended weathered hand. Done. They clasped, forging pact of cold stone and older blood. By dusk she departed south, heavy with more pledges. At camp, Great John prepared to march east to Eastwatch by the sea, clearing lingering raiders along lonely lake. She gave blessing, dispatching Seret and Isla with him, while Brandon, Benjen, and she returned toward Winterfell with wounded. For 9 days they marched. Snow turned to brittle sleet, then to crystalline flurries that gleamed under silver moonlight. Each village greeted LYANNA's banner with cheers and apprehensive questions about giants, taxes, and whether the harvest quotas would truly be hap. She answered every query by night fire, promising grain banks and fair levy. Her words carried weight. Villagers pressed smoked fish, carved charms, bundles of herbs into her hands, gifts small yet heavy with faith. On the 11th day they crossed the last river bridge and drew sight of Winterfell's smoky towers. Bell clangs rolled from ramparts, yet an unease prickled her nape. The portcullis stood open, but guards wore uneasy frowns. She found Lord Rickard pacing the solar, parchment crushed in fist. A single candle lit his face baldly, casting ravines of shadow under his eyes. Raven from King's Landing, he said before she spoke. Aerys commands immediate attendance at court to answer charges of treason and unlawful crowning. He summons you and Brandon within a fortnight. He slammed parchment on table and warns that refusal proves rebellion. LYANNA's pulse quickened. She read the bloated signature. Aerys, second of his name, king of the Andals and blah, blah. So the dragon stirred. Before she formed reply, Woyadis shuffled in with second scroll, White Harbor seal broken. Lord Wyman sends news darker still. He quavered. Royal fleet anchored at the mouth of White Knife. More than 40 war galleys. They block harbor. Search every vessel for contraband. Rickard's fist clenched. The blockade begun. Al-Narziu. Brandon cursed, pacing. LYANNA inhaled through flared nostrils. Then our time draws short. Have the lords called yet? They arrived hours ago, Rickard said, pointing toward Great Hall. Costark, Mormont, Umber, Glover, They wait. LYANNA brushed travel grime from cloak, straightened circlet, and strode. The great hall buzzed, torchlight flickering across banners and anxious faces. Maester Wiles struck staff for quiet. She mounted dais, frostbite at hip, cloak trailing. Silence rippled outward like tide. "My lords, my ladies," she began, voice carrying. "The hour we feared has arrived sooner than we hoped. King Aerys commands my submission and sets his fleet against our trade. In plain words, he seeks to starve the north." Murmurs rose, anger and fear braided. She raised hand. "I will not crawl south on bended knee, nor will I gamble your children's grain while dragons clutch in their lair. But neither shall we rush to war unready." She made eye contact with Wiles Manderly, just arrived, his girth concealed by layered furs. "Lord Wyman, can your secret coves at Wolfston harbor enough smuggling ships to ferry supplies?" "Aye, your grace," he boomed. "Tide caves under the crag keep safe channels. We can slip past galleys by night." "Good," she said. "You will coordinate with Talhart longships from Torrin Square, under cover of northern storms." Umber thumped fist. "We sail through ice if need be." LYANNA continued. "Meanwhile, we must show crown. We do not fear. Brandon, assemble envoy, travel south to Riverlands, speak with Lord Hoster Tully and John Aaron of the Vale. They served as Robert Baratheon's ward brothers. They may yet doubt the dragon's madness." "Nelnion." Brandon's eyes flashed. "And if they do not, then plant seeds anyway," she said. "Aerys has many enemies. Some only need nudge to topple." Murmur of assent. "Carhold," she turned to Harry and newly arrived. "I grant you charter to raise watch posts every league along Shivering Shore. Signal towers of pitch and glass to warn if Redwine fleet sails round." Arian bowed. "Carhold stands." Mormont, she faced Mage. "Bear Island's shield maidens will join Deepwood in raiding Ironborn reavers. Harry them until they tuck tail." May grinned ferally. "Delover," she addressed Galbart de. "Your timber will rebuild Queen's Crown Palisade and supply wall. See it done, and Umber." Great John interrupted. "Give me leave to ride on Dreadfort and tear flayed banners from their gates." Scattered laughter, quickly stifled. LYANNA shook head. "Not yet. We will not fracture the north with premature bloodshed. Instead, we invite Lord Roose to Winterfell, under guest right. Let him show his hand." "Nori." Great John grunted but nodded. She surveyed the faces. "Stand firm, feed your folk, train your arms. The dragon expects a scattered pack of starved wolves. We will show United Fang." Cheers erupted, echoing off rafters. Flame banners rose behind her words. 2 nights later, Winterfell's courtyard shimmered under bright moonlight. When LYANNA slipped from her bedchamber cloaked in gray so dark it swallowed torch glow, she padded along battlements toward Maester Wallace Rookery. An urgent letter pressed beneath her arm, one she dared not trust to any but the swiftest raven that very hour. Inside the rookery, Wally's blinked from half-sleep. "Your Grace, forgive the hour," she whispered, producing parchment sealed in black wax. "For Ashara Dane at Starfall. She once called me friend during tourney at Harrenhal. If rumors hold, Prince Rhaegar keeps correspondence with her still. This message must find his ear." Wally's brows shot up. "Clandestine plea?" "Treason again, some would say." "Not plea. Proposal. Rhaegar's wife and children stand hostage to Aerys' whims. If Dragon Prince would avert bloodshed, you need only threaten father's madness. Let him call the fleet back. Nadizash Arnazi. You trust him. I trust he loves his children. It may be enough." She laid parchment on table. "Send with your swiftest raven." Wally studied her face, nodded, selected sleek black bird with violet sheen. As he fastened message, LYANNA stroked the raven's wing. When it vanished into night, she exhaled. She did not notice the shadow in corridor until she turned. Ali's Karstark leaning against stone arch, arms folded. Secret missives to Dornish ladies, Alice murmured, mouth quirked. LYANNA kept voice low. A gamble only. I'll not judge, only ask caution. Some ravens find talons not their own. LYANNA met her eyes, flinty but loyal. Keep watch? Always. Ali slid back into shadows. The next week proved whirlwind. Brandon departed with Glover escort, riding hard. Ned's Raven reported safe arrival at White Harbor, though blockade hung heavy. King's men boarding every outbound ship, but Manderley smuggling lanes still open. Lord Roose Bolton's answer to Winterfell's invitation arrived. He accepted, but would bring only a small retinue, as roads icy. LYANNA saw cryptic politeness in each line. She ordered guest chambers aired and doubled guard in hidden corridors. Benjen grumbled he should ride to intercept the party. She agreed, secretly instructing him to watch for flayed men banners concealed in wagons. As Winterfell braced for Bolton visit, other tides shifted. Messengers from the Vale reached Moat Cailin with secret sealed pouch. Lord John Arryn expressed grave concern at Aerys' heavy hand and requested covert emissary. LYANNA dispatched allies with a slender escort, trusting her steel mind on treacherous mountain paths. Meanwhile, White Knife blockade sparked unrest. Sailors loyal to Manderley seized 2 crown Dromans at anchor and scuttled them in harbor throat, bottling 5 more behind. Royal captains raged, demanded surrender, but Manderley harbor forts trained scorpions upon their decks. King's justice seemed a long ride north. LYANNA convened a smaller privy council. Rickard, Benjen, Meg, Wallis to draft formal declaration. The North claimed sovereign status, but remained open to negotiation if Crown ceased hostile acts. She penned duplicate for Robert Baratheon at Storm's End, coupling it with personal note. She returned his stallion, sent south under Rickard's seal, declaring herself no man's prize. She awaited his response, unsure if it would be love or wrath. At dawn of Bolton arrival, Winterfell's bailey glistened with sleet. Servants scattered pine needles to cut mud stench. LYANNA stood atop inner gatehouse, circlet winking silver, frostbite sheathed but hand resting near. Below, trumpets blared welcome as Roose Bolton's column entered. 30 riders in pale gray, pink flayed men dancing on their banners, though smaller than usual. Perhaps concession. Bolton himself rode black courser, cloaked in lamb's wool trimmed with red silk. His eyes, curiously pale, almost colorless, swept courtyard with reptilian calm. When he dismounted, he bowed just deep enough. "Your Grace," he said, voice mild as summer. "Lord Bolton," she returned. "Winterfell is yours under guest right." He smiled politely. "Guest right warms even flayed men, I trust." She ignored jab. "Your chambers await. A feast tonight, in your honor. In ours, I hope," he corrected gently. "For we all are north." He straightened, dusting sleet from shoulder. "May we speak in private before banquet?" Her gut tightened. "Horse. Sola. At third bell?" He inclined head, followed steward. That evening, tapestries flickered in hearthlight, while she and Bolton faced each other across Lord Rickard's table. Benjen guarded door. Wallis poured sweet arbor wine. Bolton spoke first. Rumors reached Dreadfort of fleets and wildlings of giants slain. His lips curved faintly. Of a stark girl, wearing a silver wreath forged by herself. "I do nothing alone," she replied. "Every northern house stands beside me. Indeed, alliances knit swiftly." He tasted wine. "Yet, you forgot one. Did I?" She let silence linger. He folded slender hands. Bolton blood remembers Old North as keenly as Stark. When kings of winter ruled, Ours flayed kings in defiance, but defiance earned ruin. Our banners bent, so our bones wouldn't. He leaned forward. I won't send my folk to die for songs of independence, while crown galleys choke trade. Not an eon. LYANNA kept expression smooth. What price secures Bolton loyalty then? Autonomy. A slight tilt of his head. Grant Dreadfort free hand east of Weeping Water. Taxes collected by us. Justice served by us. And Bolton takes no coin from King's Landing. She weigh. A realm within a realm. A buffer, your grace. You fear southern armies. Allow the flayed to guard eastern marches. They will think twice before testing our knives. Rickard stiffened. Benjen's hand found sword pommel. LYANNA lifted palm. Guest right forbids threats. She said coolly. Not threat. Offer. Bolton corrected, placid. Else I remain neutral, resuming my duties to crown as warden of the Hornwood Marches. LYANNA's pulse hammered. You would seal North's throat for your own purse. Bolton smiled thinly. I would preserve my lordship. You speak of feeding widows before knights. I speak of feeding daughters before dragons. She leaned back, fingers pressed to table. I will not carve fiefdoms for extortion, she said. But I will not drive wedge deeper. Leave Winterfell unharmed, and House Bolton may remain neutral until first blood is drawn. After that you choose sides or we choose for you. Nanaman, Gini, Temeli Tiana, Dumne. Bolton's eyes glinted. A dangerous gamble. Gamble is life, she said, and I hold the dice. She rose, signaling end. Bolton stood too, bowing fraction. As he departed, she exhaled ragged. Rickard's face mirrored worry. That man will betray whichever side pays dearest, Rickard muttered. We'll watch him, she said. But for now, neutrality is leash enough. Feast followed in great hall. Roasted venison and spiced parsnips served. Jane played lute, while pipers piped reels, yet tension braided through laughter like barbed wire. LYANNA toasted Karstark blades and Bolton guests. Bolton raised cup, but hardly drank. She danced once with Brandon's returned. Squire. Later, Benjen found her on broken parapet near Library Tower. I do not like his eyes, he said. Nor I, she admitted. But war with Bolton, now tears north apart. Benjen scuffed boot. Let me shadow his men. If they slip south, I'll know. She nodded. Careful. 3 ravens arrived next dawn. First, from Deepwood, Ironborn raids repelled, but long ships massing near Widow's Watch. Second, Brandon in Riverlands. Hoster Tully willing to host envoy. Rumor says his daughter Caitlin may wed Stark heir for alliance. Third, from Storm's End, Robert's sigil. She broke Robert's seal alone. His sprawling script leapt. LYANNA, your letter struck like hammer. While I ache to see you wearing crown beside me, I reckon hearts choose thrones of their own. The mad kings coil titans about all our necks. I will not march north to fetter you, but neither can I break oath to the realm blindly. Convince me of northern cause, show proof of dragon cruelty, and the Stormlands may stand ready. Yours, now and always, Robert Noon. Yai. She traced his bold strokes, felt bittersweet tug. Proof of cruelty. Aerys' cruelty was legend, but Robert demanded fresh. She penned reply, descriptions of fleets blockading Manderley, conscription threats, giant's blood spilled while crown dithered. She sealed it with direwolf crown. Winter weeks waned. Snow piled, but roads between keeps remained open by torch and shovel. Training yards rang with newcomers, women stringing bows, blacksmiths forging pikes. LYANNA rode patrols, inspected grain cellars, mediated disputes. She knelt by crypt again, spoke to mother, then father's statue, seeking wisdom. Bolton retinue departed without incident, yet scouts soon reported Dreadfort host drilling twice daily, forging new blades of red-tinged steel. Rickard frowned but counseled patience. News from Eastwatch. Great John's raiders captured Krakensea's warlord, drowned him in ale barrel. Ale tastis vita salted with Kraken tears. Mage wrote. From alleys in Vale, Lord Aaron leans toward neutrality, but whispers of southern rebellion grow. She requests permission to nudge. LYANNA gave leave. Let the Vale know the North will not raid gold cloaks traveling mountain passes, provided Vale remains open to trade. Every victory heartened the people. Every rumor of dragons burned deeper dread. Yet a new challenge brewed unsought, famine specter. Early frost ruined late barley fields. Game thinned. White Harbor smuggling eased, but could not feed all. LYANNA ordered redistribution. Winterfell stores shipped south to Rills, east to Carhold. She wrote each village elder, promising seed come spring. Some lords grumbled. She met them in hall with ledger and steely eyes. Grain buys loyalty better than silver, she said. They quieted. 2 moons after Wildling battle, word arrived at Prince Rhaegar, rode to King's Landing, summoned by father. Ashara's raven had reached him. Whether he read it, none knew. But fleets at White Knife lifted anchor, turning south under red wine banners. Blockade east, cheers spread through White Harbor. LYANNA allowed herself half-day of joy, until messenger lathered horse to Winterfell. Riverlands aflame. Lord Hoster Tully rebelled after Crown Knights, bent on arrest, seized his eldest. Brandon's envoy trapped at River Run. She paled. Brandon captured. Not captured. Betrothed. Messenger panted. Lord Hoster married Lady Catelyn to Brandon this dawn, to bind alliance. Before dragons ride, relief and astonishment collided. She scribbled congratulations, yet deeper tremor stole her breath. War lines sharpened. If River Run burned, North would not stay untouched. Night fell heavy. She climbed Library Tower, stood under star-bloomed sky. Wind keened across stone, high and mournful. Benyon found her, pressed warm mug of mulled wine. Your crown weighs heavy tonight. She nodded, sipping. Each raven adds a stone. He pointed skyward. Stones can hold up castles, or crush those beneath. Up to us to choose shape. She laughed softly. When did my brother become master of riddles? When giants taught me size matters less than footing. He winked. She drank quiet. Below, Winterfell glowed warm. Hearths, torches, smith forge, every light a prayer. She thought of her people, their faith. She fingered circlet. Hold fast, she whispered to night. Stars glittered answer. Spring's edge crept into air, subtle, a softer bite at dawn, a drip of meltwater under eaves. Seeds of change sprouted. Brandon returned, bride on arm, Catelyn poised, red hair blazing like autumn. Winterfell roared celebration. Catelyn and LYANNA spoke late by hearth, of river winds, of motherhood, of crowns. Catelyn offered Tully grain convoys once river ice thawed. LYANNA vowed escorts. Raven winged from John Arryn. Vale would remain neutral but not hinder northern trade. Promise enough. Yet darkest cloud rose from Dreadfort. Roose Bolton forged secret pact with Crown envoy, confirmed by intercepted scroll. Thanks to Benyon's watch. Bolton to march south by Weeping Water at first thaw, spear point aimed at Carhold. LYANNA assembled war counts. Time for patience ended. She declared, we ride for Dreadfort before their blades leave scabbard. Galbart Glover, Meg Mormont, Great Jan Karstark rallied. Rickard's eyes gleamed proud. LYANNA donned hardened leathers, drew frostbite, and the call thundered through Winterfell. Muster at dawn. On eve of March, she walked Godswood, kneeling at Hearttree. She pressed circlet to bark. Red zap wetted silver leaves, staining garnets darker. She murmured vow. By root and leaf, by blood and frost, I guard my land. Wind stirred branches. Petals drifted like crimson snow, landing on her shoulders, a benediction. She rose, ready. Dawn's light found Winterfell's yard churning with riders, banners, pack horses. Snow melt trickled along flagstones, reflecting Direwolf's standard crowned in crimson leaves. LYANNA mounted Wind, Brandon beside her on Stonehow, Catelyn clasping his arm to bid safe journey. Benjen rode ahead, holding new royal standard. Great Jon bellowed command. Horns answered, gates yawned. The host rolled east, sunlight flashing on spears. Atop battlement, Rickard watched children ride, heart both heavy and fierce. Stark roses, blooming thorns. As Winterfell dwindled behind columns of steam and steel, LYANNA felt fear not, an uncoil-like dragon about to wake. But she breathed deep, tasting pine and thaw, and whispered first and last words she ever knew. Hold fast. Her army echoed howl of wolves, and the road to Dreadfort opened, white and unforgiving, beneath a queen whose heart beat thunder in winter's breast.